But what my dad texted me was a very short version of that, of I'm putting on my suit today. I'm going to go help be a pallbearer and help lay Tammy to rest. And at the end, he said, I'm going to help my friend today. I'm going to help my friend today. And that's all he did. When he was called upon to be a friend, to be kind, and to be a leader, he answered the call. And so to me, you never know who, what, when, where, why, or what circumstance you're going to be called on to be that person for someone else, but you better be ready.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Pay It Forward podcast. I am one of your hosts, Austin Siewert, along with my co-host, Keagan Walz, and today we have the pleasure of sitting down with the CEO of the La Crosse Chamber of Commerce, Neal Zygarlicke. Neal is a 2022 Rising Star Under 40 in the Seven Rivers region, a board member of the Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce Executives, board member of Habitat for Humanity in La Crosse, and also on the Viterbo Advisory Board. He does some public speaking, some business coaching and consulting. Awesome guy. Excited to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me here. It's great to be here. Although what you guys have been doing with the podcast has been awesome. I've been able to listen in, and it's always some great insight, and I'm just glad to be here today.
Cool. Excited to have you. So tell us a little bit about your role as the CEO of the Chamber.
Yeah, CEO of the Chamber. Our Chamber of Commerce represents around 600 businesses in the La Crosse area region. It includes La Crescent, Minnesota as well, just kind of the La Crosse MSA, I'd say. And right now, we do a lot of little things just to help businesses that maybe they can't do all on their own. Sometimes it's education, sometimes it's training, talent attraction, all these different types of things, but I'm the head of the chamber, face of the chamber right now, and it's awesome and it's wonderful. But my team's the thing that makes everything go, and we just have a great team. We're small but mighty, but it's a great opportunity to be the CEO of the chamber and represent La Crosse.
Awesome, very cool. Tell for people that don't know, like, what is the role of the chamber in general across the country, the different chambers?
Yeah, different chambers. They all kind of do a little bit different things, but at the end of the day, businesses pay the chambers kind of a dues to be a part of it, and then they get access to certain benefits like networking events. They get to go to educational things. A lot of times, some chambers of commerce will also do like visitor information and attracting visitors to the area. Our chamber doesn't necessarily do that, as we have our own branch of that in the area that does it. But we work on a lot of talent attraction and retention and getting people to move to La Crosse because there's such a talent shortage in the area. So that's a big piece of what we do. And for us, it's about community. It's bringing people together, bringing people to have a common good, that common interest in business, a common interest in seeing La Crosse succeed just in general. And that's what we're all about.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, so you're leading up the chamber. You do some public speaking, coaching, stuff like that. Tell us about your journey, like to this point. Where did that start?
Yeah, journey. I mean, I go back a little ways to just growing up. I went to Marshfield. I went to Columbus Catholic School. That just had great educators, great professors, teachers, and really good coaches. I was an athlete. Like I was a 3-sport athlete, and looking back on it, I didn't realize at the time, but I had some of the best coaches. I mean, there's bad coaches out there today, but I just had people who cared about all the kids on the team. They cared about me, and they taught great lessons. So I go back to kind of growing up within that mentality and those good team atmospheres. Went to Viterbo University, studied management, got my master's degree from there, and then I got a role as an internal auditor at First Supply, which is a wholesale distribution company here in town. Worked there for about 9 years, kind of worked my way up the ladder, expanded some of my role there, and then made a change to the Chamber of Commerce. And it just seemed like a natural fit, as I love La Crosse. I've always never moved away. I went to school here, stayed here, and just focusing on the business realm of things and helping other businesses it just drew me in. I wanted to help out. I wanted to connect with people. I wanted to inspire and encourage businesses to continue to do great things in our area, because I really think that's what makes our world go round, living here in La Crosse.
Yeah, and I think your dad was one of your coaches growing up?
Dad, he coached when I was really young. He did he was our basketball coach, and then in high school, he was cross country and track coach as well for me. I talk about my dad a lot, but I take a moment to talk about my mom. She was a huge part of it. My dad was kind of he had just an enthusiasm, so he always pushed people. But my mom was a little bit quieter on the backside, and she was just a great listener. So she was always someone who just listened, and I could bend her ear and talk to her about stuff, which is amazing growing up, because I had frustrations, right, with trying to be a good student, trying to be a good athlete, all those type of things. But my dad was really influential because I got to spend a lot of extra time with him on the coaching realm when he was coaching me, and he just had an enthusiasm for life. He has that. He's just the type of guy. One story that I talk about with him all the time, just to get a sample of who he was. He would walk into our cross-country practices, 5 a.m. It's dark outside because it's fall. It's kind of cold, and all of us high school students are just we're dead. We want to be in bed. Like, we don't really want to be at practice. And he'll walk out of the car and show up, and he'll just, kind of booming voice, "Good morning, beautiful people." and everybody, just kind of shakes their head, rolls their eyes, kind of smiles. But he just had that enthusiasm, and he probably didn't even want to be there at 5 a.m. either. Yeah. But he just still put forward that enthusiasm and that energy, and it did rub off on us. You get a high school kid to crack a smile and joke and laugh before they have to go run. If for cross country, that's amazing. That's just a small little thing. That's a little story about him that I like to tell, because that just kind of encapsulates his enthusiasm for life.
Yeah, very cool. What sports did you play in high school?
I ran cross country. Then I was in basketball, and then I ran track. I was kind of a mid-distance runner. I was a runner, but I was a pretty good runner. Went to state a couple of times in cross country and in track. But basketball was my love, and I ended up playing basketball at Viterbo University, as well, when I went to school there. So a lot of athletics in my blood.
Yeah. Do you think that, like, your time in athletics, the things that you learned there and the skills that you learned relay over to the business world as well?
100%. I just some of the team dynamics, whether it's peer-to-peer level talking, figuring out how to work together from a coaching perspective, right? I had really good coaches. I've also, coaches and leaders aren't perfect either. I've got to observe some of those leaders and those coaches and see the things that I liked about what they did. Some of the things that I was like, maybe they're not that good at that. But if I'm going to be a leader, if I'm going to be a coach, I want to try to do better in those areas, or be good in those certain areas. So it absolutely 100% shaped the leader that I am today, and what I would say I bring to the businesses and the business table.
Cool.
Do you have any specifics of what those qualities are of the coaches that you really liked and that you took into the business world?
Yeah, I've had coaches that took things extremely seriously, and I had some that were a little bit more laid back. And honestly, I think the coaches that were laid back were able to, I think, build relationships a little bit quicker with the people that they're coaching and they're leading. And I really liked that style. Not to say that they were laid back and that they wouldn't hold you accountable, but they just weren't too serious. So you could go to coach, you could talk to him, or he'd be hard on you, but you'd know that there was that softened side of him that they loved you. I've had coaches that were just kind of, hard asses, honestly, and great coach, but I could see and observe within our team some of the kids wouldn't respond to that. They wouldn't build a relationship, and then that kind of hindered the environment of the team of everyone feeling like they belong, everybody feeling like they're valued. There's a fine line. So I'm a little bit more on like a little bit more of the laid back side of things to build trust. But at the end of the day, like, I'm going to hold you accountable. And that's extremely important. So that's a style that I think, comparing the two, that I learned and that I like and that I've adopted in business as well.
Yeah. Do you ever use the opposite though? Because how much of that do you think is like your personality and what worked for you, when in other cases, like this certain player might need the hard ass, so to speak?
100%. And it's trying to get to, I like having kind of having the laid back a little bit to maybe make it on a personal level more approachable.
Yep.
So that we can build a relationship. Once you kind of build that and have that conversation and you kind of observe them, you see what they need. Sometimes you have to ask them like, hey, how do you want to be coached or led? You can make adjustments. And you can start to be pretty hard on someone and be that hard ass. And you have to make that adjustment. I think it's hard to make that adjustment without first building the relationship, though, at first. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, I think there's different personalities, and it's knowing people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we reach out to the person, or at least like with me, like my role within like ministry and like youth was always, give me the punk kids, because Keagan was the punk kid. So it's almost like I know how they operate.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, you can't just come down with a hammer without a relationship, because I knew whether or not this was appropriate, whatever. It was like, okay, if you came down with a hammer, but I didn't have a relationship with you, game on. Here we go. Like,
Yep.
you can't just drop the hammer.
Right.
But the teachers that were the more laid back, built the relationship and the trust, when they would come in with that kind of firm response, I would, okay, I know that this person actually cares about me. Yep, you're right. I crossed the line, snap back. And so, yeah, I really like what you said about that.
Yeah, and I even as adults, even in business, when you're leading teams, it's the same type of thing. I mean, I can look at my team right now, and I know that there's people that, hey, I'm going to take a more, I guess, gentle approach on certain topics, and there's some other people that I can kind of just look at and be like, what the hell's going on? Hey, we said we were going to accomplish this, and we haven't gotten there. Like, why? What's going on? Just give it to me straight, and then if we have the conversation, you just kind of go, well, we got to do this. We got to get this. And it's just very straightforward. So you got to adjust as a leader. The only way you learn how to adjust, though, is by building that trusting relationship with people, though.
Man, I'm not opposite of you guys, but I would relate more to the hard ass. Like, tell me what to do and how to do it, and I'm going to do it. Or me the same to others. Like, I'm going to tell you straight what I'm thinking. And maybe that's not the right way, but I don't know. I feel like if you're aligned in your purpose and your passion for what you're doing, that if you don't have a sense of urgency and passion behind it, like, people need to sense that. You know what I mean? If you're too laid back in leading somebody or a team, then they might feel that there's a lack of passion for what you're doing, a lack of. I have a personal value of just having a sense of urgency of what I'm doing. Yep. So I don't know. I think that if you are a little bit more laid back, you still have to make sure the accountability part
100%
is huge, and having a sense of urgency and purpose and passion for what you're doing.
Yep,
so.
100%. At the end of the day, it does come down to accountability.
Yeah.
You still got to step up, and whether you kind of have that laid back style, you got to step up to the accountability side.
So what does that look like realistically for somebody to hear accountability? Like, what does that look like? Is that somebody looking over your shoulder and saying, why didn't you do this? Or like, what does that look like in your organization?
Yeah, I think in our organization, we've adopted a little bit of the traction system, the EOS system from the book Traction. And it comes down to we have meetings to set goals 90 days out. Here's our goals. And then we track them. And then when you get to the end of the 90 days, everybody in our leadership group or on our team is basically saying, yep, I accomplished these goals, or here's how we did, or here's where we missed. And that type of accountability goes really, really far. Not only do you get to kind of celebrate everything that you accomplished, but you get to talk to each other and figure out what are the obstacles as to why we didn't accomplish those goals. Maybe we can fix something. But it's all out there. It's all out there early on, and it's communicated. You can see it. The whole group can see it, and almost you're holding each other accountable. So I like that. I like that system. I think it's been really helpful for us.
And if somebody isn't consistently accomplishing their goals, like, what does that conversation look like?
And pull them to the side and have the conversation. And sometimes, it's not always the conversation around, hey, you didn't get this goal done. I'm disappointed. Your performance needs to increase. A lot of times it's a conversation around like, hey, what's going on? Why didn't these things get done? From my observation and my outside perspective, I think it could have been accomplished. But what else is going on? And sometimes you have that conversation, you have that question, and people start to tell you. And a lot of times it doesn't have anything to do with the work. A lot of times it has things, hey, I'm dealing with a parent that's aging and having health issues. Hey, my kid's going through some stuff. There's usually other reasons that are hindering some of the performance things. And you have to find that line of being there for someone to help support them through it, hopefully knowing that they're going to get back to accomplishing all the things that they said that they're going to accomplish. Other times, hopefully you never have to go down the direction of saying like, I know you're still struggling on some of these other issues outside of work, but if you're consistently not hitting goals, then you got to start talking about different directions and things like that. Those are never fun conversations, but you got to have them.
Yeah. Did you always know that you wanted to be in the business world, or?
Yeah, interestingly enough, when I went to Viterbo University, I was like, I'm going to be a business management degree. And people always ask like, what industry you want to go into? And I always just said, I don't really know. I just want to find a good company that has good people in it, and I'll find my way. Like I didn't really know what industry at all. But I think going back, my dad was a parts manager. He worked for Northern Auto at one point in time, CarQuest, and then a company called Power Pack that does like motorsports and John Deere type lawn tractor stuff. And he was a parts manager and supply chain guy there. And he brought me in a lot just to come and observe and see the business as a young kid. I mean, I did inventory when I was, I think, 10 or 11 years old, helping out with some of that stuff. And I just kind of liked it. I like to see, hey, they're bringing in new machines, they're bringing in inventory, and they're selling it. And now there's new inventory coming for next year, especially for like the motorcycles and, jet skis and that type of stuff. So I think I always just had that interest in it. I just didn't know what industry. And even today, like, okay, I went from a plumbing and HVAC and wholesale distribution industry at First Supply to economic development and being kind of a community ambassador with the chamber. Completely different industries. And if I ever go on and move on to a next venture, he'll probably be in a different industry. So I still wouldn't say that there's this one industry that I'm just love and am really, really passionate about. I've been passionate about both of them so far.
I've always been like that. And like I remember out of college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to own my own business. And I love the game of business. I just do. I love the game of it. Like you said, of seeing inventory come in, selling it. Like I've always done service businesses and enjoyed providing an excellent service for people. But I always knew I wanted to have a business, but the industry's wide open. You know what I mean? I'm not as passionate about a specific industry and more passionate about business in general. So I can relate to that. Tell us more about your public speaking stuff that you do, business coaching.
Yeah, some public speaking stuff. I've been fortunate to be on a couple of different podcasts, and the chamber has allowed me to get in front of a lot of businesses and speak a little bit more publicly. But I have a passion for inspiring people and getting people to take the step to become a better leader or take their first step into becoming a leader. And that type of passion just really fuels me. Some of the people that I've been able to get close with, mentor a little bit, I just see the change that they make, is so awesome. And if you can inspire someone to take those steps to be better people, which is then going to impact a wide variety of people, man, that's exciting. It's just super exciting. So I've started my own kind of just side business. It's very, very small, but people can contact me about whether it be keynote speaking or coming in and speaking to your small group. I do some strategic planning stuff as well because I've had experience in that. And then I also am really I've kind of put together a model on how to evaluate your company culture and can do that type of stuff. So those three things are what I'm excited about. I have a really passion around it because I know the impact that it can make on organizations and people. So I'm doing that on the side. It's not huge or massive right now, but just starting to do
very cool
that type of stuff. And it's really fun. It's really rewarding, and you get to meet a lot of fun people at a little bit more of an intimate level. Yeah.
Talk more about the company culture. We talked about that a lot on the podcast, had people talk about that. So you say that again, of what you have a model for like evaluating
and reviewing company culture. A lot of people, right, you can go up to a business and you talk to some employees, even talk to some business leaders, CEO, and they're like, what do you like about your company? And they say, oh, our culture's amazing.
Yeah.
It's great. Our people are great. I believe you. But I always kind of in the back of my head, and this is maybe just a little bit of my internal audit background, I go like, well, prove it to me.
Yeah.
Like,
what does your team say?
Yeah. Like, can you show me the statistics or any like anecdotal things as to like what really constitutes what you believe or what you expect is a good company culture? And a lot of places can't. They have information at their fingertips though. But they haven't really reviewed it. So where I like to start with company culture is almost everybody has a mission, vision, and values, right? Pretty much every company has them. Well, start to look at your values. Okay, let's say customer service is your value, or like having the best customer service is like one of your values, right? Well, show me statistics, right? Like, do you have customer surveys? Okay. Well, what do those compare to like national or regional averages? Are they good? Are they bad? Are they hitting the expectations that you have? Well, how about like there's a lot of internal sales calls, what's your response rates on internal sales call? Are you tracking those things? Those, you start to go through the list of values and you start to put statistics or what statistics you can to those and really start to ask the question, is this what I expect? Or are we missing? And you can go through some values and say, yeah, we hit it out of park with this value 1, 2, and 3, but values 4 and 5, man, we're missing on this stuff. And then it's kind of having a conversation as a leadership group and facilitating those conversations. Hey, how do we get better at it? What's the recommendations? What statistics can we look at to really gauge this type of stuff? I don't think a lot of companies get to that level of evaluating their company culture. But that's the only way to really gauge if you have a good company culture. So that's something that I'm passionate about. It's something that I was able to do a little bit of at First Supply, which is really exciting. They gave me kind of the freedom just to go and do it. But it can be you can do it in other businesses too, and that's something that I would like to bring to other businesses, and I think that's something that's important. But at the end of the day, company culture, absolutely. It's gonna be the success of your business, or it's not.
I think that's really cool. And I think like what you said, right? The company culture, the vision, the mission statement has got to come off the wall. Otherwise, I feel like it's just a hot button. It's a keyword. People just throw out, oh, good culture. But they don't do anything it's like this ethereal term, the same way of like, well, I know that should probably be my vision, but there's no actual practical steps to do it. The same person that just says, well, I want to be successful. Okay, well, how are you going to get there? I want to be successful. Well, good, but if there's no steps or roadmaps to get there, if there's no statistics and tracking and analytics behind it, it's like the same thing with culture. I think we just think it's going to like balloon out of nowhere. Well, I showed up today with a happy attitude, so the culture is good today. It's like there's practical steps to culture is boots on the ground, what's really happening.
I want to go. This is my hot take, and
Love it.
Some people are going to blast me on this, but this is like my hot take about culture. And it's not that I dislike the phrase, but there's parts of it that I think are utilized the wrong way. People always say culture starts at the top. I agree to a certain point. I agree that the executives, owners, they should set the culture, they should set the tone of the culture, and they should exhibit the culture the most. The fastest way to deteriorate culture is to have the leaders not doing those things, right? Fastest way. However, we have companies all across America, all across the world that have multiple branches all over the area, right? Might have 40, 50, 60, 100 branches. Now, you could walk into one branch and they could have a crap culture. Absolutely bad. You could walk into another one and they have amazing culture. Did the top executives really hint? Do they have anything to do with that? No, it was people that were boots on the ground, like you said. There are people that at some point in time, someone probably came to work as a frontline worker and said, I'm just going to do the right thing because I believe this is right. This is the right thing to do. And they worked hard, they treated people right, and they built up some leadership skills. Well, all of a sudden, they are a middle manager and leading. All of a sudden, they are now probably a branch manager, and they changed that culture. But they didn't change it from the top. They changed it from the front line. And so that's where I have a little bit of criticism around that the phrase culture starts at the top. If you want to make an impact, culture can start at any point. It can start with frontline manager, it can be middle manager, and it absolutely should be at the top. I agree with that. But the phrase itself, I sometimes don't like it, and I sometimes think that people utilize it to point fingers and say like, oh, it's the executive's fault or it's the owner's fault for this or that. Don't get me wrong. They hold a huge, high responsibility towards culture, but you can start to change culture at the front line. Absolutely.
How much of it is just finding the right people from the start that embody those values versus training to the values of like taking somebody who doesn't align with the values and trying to train them to the values?
Yeah, you gotta try to hire towards those values. I would hire towards the values every single day over whatever like actual skills they had. You can teach a lot. You can teach a lot of those like technical skills for whatever job it is. You can't always teach people not to be a dink, you know? Like, right? You just can't. You can't always coach through those things. You try to, but you just can't. So hire for those values. John McHugh from Quick Trip the other day said pretty much in every Quick Trip interview that they do, and I think they do a wonderful job because look how great they've been doing. Look how they treat their employees. He said part of every single interview question that they ask, and sometimes it's towards the start of the interview, is they ask questions around like more of the culture and values. And one of the questions was, what is something new that you have tried today? Or like, and what's something that you've tried, not today, but what's something new that you've tried? And if they can't really ask that question, that interview probably stops pretty quick.
What value of theirs does that align with?
It's the innovation, it's the creativity, it's the willing to step out of your own comfort zone. Those are some of the values that they hold and want in their people. And so they try to ask in the interview process those questions just to gauge it. Of course, they try to get it right as much as possible. But I mean, I think it's just interesting. They actually have changed some of their model of how they hire to help have a culture fit.
Yeah. So let's talk about metrics again too. I'm a metrics guy. I'm a black and white guy. And when you think of culture, generally you don't think of hard stats and metrics. You think of how does it feel when you go into the office? How does it feel? Like it's more of a feeling, right?
Yep.
Than a statistic or a metric. So are you saying that every value on the wall should have a metric associated with it in your business?
I would say push to try.
Okay.
And really push yourself to try. If you want to say, hey, we're very people forward and we want to do what's best for our people, it might not necessarily be like, oh, let's have an engagement survey for our employees. Go beyond that. Start to look at like, what are our retention rates? What are our retention rates per department? What are, have we had customer complaints about our employees, right? Let's look beyond, hey, how involved are employees potentially in outside organizations within the community? That's being people forward. What are our benefits like? And not to say that every company can just fully pay for benefits and have a 5% matching, 401k and that type of stuff. But are you progressing towards what is at minimum average? Or are you starting to push above what's average? There's a lot of things that you can start to pinpoint or look at to give indicators as to what really what that value means, and are you headed in the right or wrong direction, or are you just staying stagnant? So I do think you can start to kind of tear apart and find statistics around each value. I really, truly think you can.
Are there some good resources that people can go to find those industry averages, or is it just the Google search? Or
really tough?
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of the back end work that's really tough around it, because it's not always easy to see. And a lot of bigger companies that work with human resources and businesses, that they're consultants, so you got to pay for a lot of that stuff. And the small, medium businesses just don't have the money to do that type of stuff. But you can, Google, ChatGPT, those type of things, they're your friend. So if you can utilize those to maybe find some statistics and some averages around, employee retention, customer surveys, 401k type benefit stuff, you can start to find it. It just takes a little bit more work to research those things.
Yeah.
Is there a specific keyword like we're talking about, or vision that you've seen be the most important to the non-ethereal culture that started at a company? Is there one specifically that you've seen across the board, when we really track and implement this one, it leads to a lot of success, or maybe more success in certain ones?
I do think that there's I think what you'll find is a lot of companies, especially probably some of the local ones, the companies who've been here for over 100 years, I think a lot of them always put their people first. They maybe didn't say it as a value or a vision or really put it on their wall all the time, especially in the early years. But you can distinctly see the ones who really treat their people extremely, extremely well. And in turn, they treat their customers well, right? We've heard that phrase before. But you can look back at a lot of the companies, especially here in La Crosse, the ones that are over 100 years, man, go back and you can talk to some of their owners and executives and even just the frontline people there and say, what do you like about this place? I bet you it has something to do with them feeling that they are trusted, valued, they feel like they belong. And so it's about the people. It's about the people. They did it right. They maybe didn't put too much focus on the customers over the people. That sometimes happens, but yeah, that's what I would say is the one thing.
That sounds so simple though.
It does.
So much of what we talk about, whether or not it feels or seems repetitive, it just seems like everybody listening or watching is probably duh. Well, yeah, we got to do that, and seemingly every company says it. So where's the disconnect? What's the difference between the companies actually implementing it or having it just on the wall and that's where it stays and it never actually makes it to the marketplace?
Yeah, I think having tough conversations around, especially middle management, on providing them resources on how to make a really good environment for their people. Here's how meetings can be done to be productive for the business, but also to show care for the individual. Providing and getting that atmosphere and environment within those departmental teams or frontline manager teams, right? Those tools sometimes aren't spoken of or taught enough, or the resources aren't quite there for a lot of middle managers. But that's what's critical. Each supervisor or manager really should be thinking through themselves, how can I make this working environment as good as it can possibly be, as tight-knit and as wonderful as it can possibly be. And I don't think people reflect on that a lot. I reflect on it sometimes, but like I even know I go a month or two and then I go, man, I really should sit back and think about like all the meetings that I've had with my people. How'd they go? Was there obstacles or things that I could have done better in those areas to build more trust or allow people to speak their mind and have their voice heard? That sometimes doesn't happen, and people aren't trained on that type of stuff.
I remember Andrew Dahl came on and talked about how important it is for leaders to block off space in their calendar to relax, to reflect, to think about those. Like if you're just go, and you're the operator, and like in a small business that has 5, 8, 10 people, like generally the head person's still very involved in the day-to-day, and sometimes it's tough to step back and really think about more of those ambiguous type things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I kind of do the anecdotal or story is, you get blinders.
Yeah.
If you don't take step back, you're always going to have some sort of blinders. But like if you are go, your blinders keep getting bigger and bigger and longer and longer and longer. And all of a sudden, really, right, you're in tunnel vision. You take reverse, you take time to step back, reflect, and time off, have fun, and then have, the reflection time. Your blinders get a little bit smaller. You're always going to have them, but they start to get a little bit smaller. And that's what you want. You want the smallest blinders possible.
Yeah. I just heard a Dave Ramsey video. As Dave said, bosses push, leaders pull. So he said, and generally the leader in the organization, like they have, like myself, I have enough motivation and ambition within me that I'm just going to go and do. And I don't need to be motivated or coddled or like, you can just tell me straight what you want. Right. But that's just not the reality for employees and people that you hire. They don't have the same passion and ambition that you do. Otherwise, they would be doing it themselves. So I think for that person to recognize that it's like Dave said, he said, I just hired people and thought that they would work. Like, I'll go get you on payroll and this is what you need to do. Like, tell them what to do, but that's not enough to tell somebody what to do and then push them to do it. Like, you have to lead by example and you have to pull them along and drive the like it's an area that I'm working on and I think will always be an area that needs to be improved on, of just more of those soft skills of leadership than just drive.
I go back to a little bit of like my environment comment, like provide the right environment. People are only going to be so passionate about like the actual thing that they do, whether it's sales or whether it's being a mechanic, right? They might have a passion around it. Don't get me wrong. They might have that, but take that passion and add it to, hey, some of my best friends are the people I work with. Yeah. You want to talk about passion? That's passion. How do you provide that environment so that those relationships can happen? Yeah. Then that's the person. Those are the employees that are amazing, right? I love what I do physically, like the actual task, but I also love the people that I'm working with, and they're some of my best friends. That's passion. That's a team. You go back to sports. We were talking about that before. The best sports teams that I've been on have been teams that, no joke, basically felt like a brotherhood.
Yeah,
they loved each other. They worked hard. They loved what they were doing, but they did it for each other. And that I've been on sports teams that we didn't have that. We all loved basketball. Some of us liked each other. Some of us weren't overly close friends. We had all the talent in the world, but we weren't a championship type team.
That's great. So what advice would you give to like somebody who's just starting a business, that they want to implement the right culture, they want to have the right people? Like practically, where do they start with that?
I would say have consistent meetings with your people, whoever you're managing. Have consistent meetings. Have consistent team meetings where you're all getting together and spending time together. And I would say allow time to work on the business and set those goals, but also allow time to get to know each other as well. Pretty much every weekly meeting that we have right now at the Chamber of Commerce, we start with share your good news, and it's all personal. And a lot of times, sometimes it's not even good news. Sometimes that's the time frame when people are like, yeah, I'm struggling with this, or like this is going on in my life, or I had a death in the family. I just wanted to tell the group, and that way we can support. And other times it's great stuff. Hey, my kid had a birthday, or they got straight A's, or they're on the varsity team for this or that, right? Great stuff. Start your meetings with that, then get into the business. It allows that awesome team dynamic and the care and belonging and trust that you want to build. So that's one of the things is I would say consistency in meeting with your people to maintain expectations, to get to know and trust them. And then as a team, get together as well. The only other thing that I'd say, no matter what business you are, try to figure out how to evaluate those values. And then on the other end is try to start hitting those business goals. Strive to what do you want to accomplish, what's realistic, set a goal, and go after it. I think you put some of that kind of combination of four together, you'll be all right.
Yeah, we were talking before the show about EOS and traction and just how it's just a good structure to the cadence of your meetings, to the cadence of how you set goals and when you review them. And because I think people have these goals in their head and they might be a year, they might be a year and a half or 3 years. Like if there's not an end date, but like traction blocks it into 90-day goals. Like you need to be working every week on something if you're going to hit it in 90 days. But if I set a goal for the end of the year, oh, we got a busy week, I'll do it. You know what I mean? And then it gets next week and the next week and the next week. And if you don't have any, I think that's a great resource to just at least provide structure so then you can focus more on some of those soft skills and in what you're doing.
It helps in the structure. Yeah. I mean, especially for like startup businesses, new businesses. I mean, when you're an owner operator, from what I've heard, I haven't been an owner operator like that, but what I continuously hear is like, man, it's so hard to take time to work on the business. And this helps with a little bit of that. It allows them to step back and work on the business. And I think that model it's a nice model. It can be really helpful, and I would encourage people to do that. You asked, I want to go back to your question around people kind of what advice would you give to people starting their business or being a leader, like when it comes to that type of stuff? I would also venture to say that whoever you're kind of your inner circle, or even to go even further, like whoever you're choosing to be with for your life partner is probably one of the most important decisions. I mean, I go back, my wife and I met at a bar here in La Crosse when we were in college, right? But us being together and being supportive of each other is one of the biggest. I can tell you right now, I wouldn't be at the Chamber of Commerce right now if it wasn't for having her in my life. She's a wonderful business person. She's head of marketing for SaaS software for Gensler. So runs 2 business units, is the head of their marketing for that. And she's savvy, and it's nice, and I'm thankful and fortunate that I'm able to have conversations just around business with her. But I also know on the other end, like from a personal perspective, she'll also just push me. Like we'll have conversations and she'll be like, why the heck did you say that at work? And like, have you thought about this if you're dealing with this employee? And I'm like, no, you're right. So like that significant other, that partner, that life partner that you have also is going to be a huge part of your success. And they really are. Now I'm just fortunate to have her in my life. So
yeah, that's amazing.
Beautiful. Love it.
So other than EOS, so Traction is the name of the book if anybody's interested. What other resources, whether it's within like the Chamber of Commerce or other resources out there, would you recommend people look into?
Mean, for La Crosse or anywhere, if you're starting a business, I'd look at your local Chamber of Commerce. They all do some wonderful stuff. One of the big things that we do, right? We have 600 different businesses. We can network. We can get you connected to people that you might want to get connected to. In La Crosse, a smaller city, right? I think it's a little bit easier. You can probably have a conversation or, 2 conversations, 1 email away from really getting connected to some influential people here that will give you insight, gain insight, give you advice, maybe be your mentor. That's a huge part of what the chamber does, but we also, the educational side of things. I mean, we ran a conference that had different breakout sessions. One was on technology and talked about AI. One was on marketing and how to use video a little bit better for your business. Another one was how to just hire and attract talent so that people feel like they belong. And we have all these different educational aspects, and it's low dollar. It's not expensive. So when businesses, especially starting up, can go and have access to those things, man, it's incredibly important because they could start to implement some of them in their business. Other things from a chamber perspective, right? Getting tied in to see and hear what best practices are that are happening in the area, to hear and see that the chamber is working on workforce and housing issues, which is really hindering kind of the talent pool in our area. Man, you can see the impact that we're having. So being a part of it, there's so many benefits for those startup businesses or businesses that have been around for a while that are looking to get themselves or their employees involved in the community. It's a great way. It's a fun atmosphere. It's all business professionals, all pretty much like-minded. We all love La Crosse. So it's a great way to utilize. It's a good dollar spent. Yeah.
And I think what you said too about you can get in contact with the influential person. There might be one person in between there, and we found that out with the podcast. Everybody who's been on has either been somebody that we know personally that we've reached out to, or we know somebody who knows that person and they've made the introduction and they've offered to come on. There's never been 2 or 3 or 4 people away. It's somebody who knows that person.
They talk, right, in the world, they talk 6 degrees of separation. Yeah. 2 in La Crosse.
It's 2.
It's 2. You use your second. If you got to get to a third one, you didn't ask the first person. You didn't. The first person was the wrong person to ask. This is kind of my opinion. It's 2. It really is. What I love about La Crosse, this is so amazing. It's just part of it being such a tight knit community. People, you're getting gas, you're getting groceries with some of the best leaders in La Crosse. And even in the Midwest in the greater area. And sometimes you literally don't even know it. You are running into people who have built not only just generational wealth for their family, but have led companies that have 100, 200, 300 employees. And a lot of times they're regular people, and you're pumping gas and getting groceries right next to them. And sometimes you don't even know it.
Yep.
You might not recognize them. But that's just the type of atmosphere that we have in La Crosse. And it's incredible because they are regular people. Because like you said, you can probably say, hey, would you want to get coffee with me sometime? I know you don't know who I am, but here's the business that I'm starting. Almost all of them will say, yeah, absolutely. Love to get coffee with you. Love to grab a beer with you, whatever it may be.
Yeah, that's how I feel every time I'm filling up. I'm sitting there filling up my tank going, these people next to me have no idea how lucky they are.
How lucky they are to be who's next to me.
They have no idea they're by this huge celebrity.
That's funny. But you don't know because they're driving an F-150, not a Lamborghini. You know what I mean? You don't.
They don't know I'm Keagan because I'm driving my 2007 Toyota minivan with a little bug shield on the front, and it's so I can go undercover because I'm sick of I'm going to the festival and quick and the autographs and the pictures. I'm like, calm down. I'm just a normal guy.
That's funny. I'd encourage relationships are. You hear relationships are key. Relationships are everything, and there's not a shortage of money. There's a shortage of relationships. That's so important. And we've started this podcast and run this podcast just reaching out to people. And I think we probably could count on one hand how many people that have said, no, I'm not really interested, or have passed on doing it. Probably on one hand. And we've had how many episodes now?
Chunk.
Over 50?
No. I don't know. No, 30-something.
30-something. We've asked a lot of people.
I don't know. Sorry.
But most people are willing to do that. Dave Twite came on here, said, I'll sit in a coffee shop with anyone who asks. Dude has company's over hundreds of millions of dollars in sales, and he'll sit down and have coffee with you. So if I would that's one thing that I did when I was younger, is just reached out to successful business people that I knew and had lunch. That's why we started this podcast, to bring those conversations, those same conversations that I had when I was younger, out to others and give them the opportunity to do that. So we are blessed to live in an awesome community here, but really any community that you live in, you're probably one or two people away from the person that you want to talk to.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Cool. Well, anything else, Keagan?
That's what I got.
Kev?
I used my one joke for the day.
We like to end, Neal, if there's one thing you want to leave our audience with and that would stick out and they can remember from this, what would that be?
Yeah, I do. I tell this story a good amount. I usually put it within some of my speeches and things like that. So if people are listening to this a second time, sorry, but I just think it's impactful. And it's a story about my dad. And I sometimes get emotional around it. We'll see if I get emotional today around it. But so there was a girl who I ran cross country and track with. She's about a couple years younger than me. I wasn't a close friend with her in high school, but we knew each other. We knew each other's families. My dad was her coach, as we talked about my dad being a coach before. So she grew up, went to college, right? Started working, but then she ended up getting like a brain cancer, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but she ended up getting a kind of a rare kind of cancer, and she ended up passing away in what was April of 2020. So if you go back April 2020, right, that was right pandemic hit around mid-March around here. Everything was shut down. So she passed away, and my dad gets a text from her dad that, or I should say the other way around. My dad texted her dad and said, "Hey, I'm sorry about your loss. She was a wonderful, wonderful kid. I enjoyed coaching her. She was absolutely amazing. If you need anything, let me know. I'm here for you." It's probably a text message that we all would send, right? If you knew someone's daughter passed away, you'd probably send that message, send that letter, send that card, say something similar. And you mean it, but sometimes you don't expect to actually be asked. My dad gets a message back that says, "Hey, Wayne, I actually do need help with something, and there is something that you could do. Would you be willing to be a pallbearer for her funeral? We're not actually able to have a funeral or celebration of life, and we need to lay her to rest." And so my dad didn't tell me this. I didn't know what was going on. But what my dad texted me was a very short version of that, of, "I'm putting on my suit today. I'm going to go help be a pallbearer and help lay Tammy to rest." And at the end, he said, "I'm going to help my friend today. I'm going to help my friend today." And that's all he did. When he was called upon to be a friend, to be kind, and to be a leader, he answered the call. And so to me, you never know who, what, when, where, why, or what circumstance you're going to be called on to be that person for someone else, but you better be ready. And I think it's amazing. That's a story that I think it's so incredibly important, and so incredibly important to not only her life, but to her dad in a time of need. I'm going to help my friend today. That's something that I think everyone can live off of. I think it's something that I try to live off of as well, as I'm going to help my friends today.
That's beautiful.
That is amazing. And you're doing it with what you're doing. You're able to help your friends, but you're able to help so many others and make an impact through local businesses in the community. So thank you for the work that you do.
Well, thanks so much. Thanks for having me on, Keagan. Austin, great seeing what you're doing with this podcast. I love listening in, and I'm very, very grateful and thankful that you guys had me on today.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Cool. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. We sincerely hope that you found value in today's episode and heard one thing that you can take back and implement into your life today. As always, we appreciate your support and hope you can find a way this week to pay it forward.